The West has started countering Russia's mounting offensive with sanctions that it had long promised. The first set of sanctions coming in from Britain, the UK Prime Minister announcing sanctions in the House of Commons earlier. Britain has essentially targeted 5 Russian banks and 3 high net worth individuals with close links to the Kremlin. The concerned individuals are Gennady Timchenko, Russian billionaire and owner of Volga Group, a private investment group, Boris Rothenberg and Igor Rothenberg, who are owners of the SMG Group, the largest construction company for gas pipelines in Russia. All 3 individuals will be banned from travelling to Britain. UK individuals and entities will be banned from dealing with them and the banks.
For a full-scale offensive. We must now brace ourselves for the next possible. The House should be in no doubt that the deployment of these forces in sovereign Ukrainian territory amounts to a renewed invasion of that country. And by denying Ukraine's legitimacy as a state and presenting its very existence as a mortal threat to Russia, Putin is establishing the pretext for a full-scale offensive.
Britain's opposition also welcomed the sanctions but said they were not enough to deter Russia. Britain has also summoned Russia's ambassador for talks on the Ukraine crisis. The US is considering new economic sanctions against Russia, proposing to cut some of its top banks from dollar transactions. Washington has already finalized trade and financial sanctions against Moscow after consultations with the leaders of France and Germany. The US will announce its list of sanctions later today. The European Union finance ministers have also gathered in Brussels for a key meeting where they will be discussing details of the sanctions planned against Russia. The bloc is likely to give out details of the sanctions today. Our correspondent Susan Teherani is in New York. She has been tracking all those developments very closely. Susan, hi. The set of sanctions that have been announced by the UK being the first set for now. Boris Johnson has said that if Vladimir Putin goes a step further, then more sanctions will follow. Help us understand the kind of implications that we are talking about for the Russian economy when it comes to the sanctions announced today.
Right. Well, on the part of Europe, really, these are the, quote, first set of sanctions that the UK did speak about. And, you know, some might say that this is something that the Russians can really move past and not really get hard hit on. They are from a set of individuals right now. Those sanctions are against a set of individuals and a set of companies. What I think the more aggressive sanctions that many are looking towards would probably hit Russia more and deter Vladimir Putin from taking action would possibly be those that would really counter Russia's financial system. And the problem with that is we now learn that, you know, that nuclear option that the West, the United States and Europe was talking about, which is throwing Russia off the SWIFT financial system, has already been ruled out because of a number of Russian financial institutions who already have huge lines of credit open with countries like Austria, France, and the Netherlands. So we'll have to see, you know, how Russia responds to these 5 set of sanctions from the UK. But as far as those imposed by the United States last night, they were termed as being watered down. And I think that, you know, I think that's probably going to be the same sentiment right now regarding these sanctions from the UK coming from Europe, because there's already been cracks coming out of the European Union. Italy has already said that it sort of backs off from imposing more sanctions on Russia as of now because it hasn't staged a quote-unquote full-on invasion. So, you know, the excuse might be from the West that if they go on with more hard-hitting sanctions, it won't have the deterrent effect. But then again, there is there's always debate on both sides of the aisle. But this is the first step, and that's what's going to be UK's defense.
Absolutely. There's also a question of whether Russia's de-dollarization, as it's been called, can protect the country from the American sanctions. Right, I'll just repeat that for you. There have been discussions over what and how Russia can try and smoothen the impact that these American sanctions could have on its economy. There is also talk of de-dollarization, as it's been called. But in terms of the monetary aspects and the monetary impact, we are talking about further sanctions that could be coming in from the United States in a while from now, where the American president will be speaking.
Right. That's the thing, is when we talk about the monetary aspect of it, even countries like China have been very careful in dealing with something like that, because they also don't want to be kicked off from the international financial system. And the issue with that is, despite the fact that Russia and countries that have had sanctions imposed on them, perhaps harsher than Russia, is that at the end of the day, the dollar does control the international monetary system, and they can only go so far in doing business without the dollar. Like I said, even China has sort of drawn a very fine line in dealing with this issue, because it doesn't want to get involved, and it has international and monetary interests when dealing not only with Europe but the United States as well. When it comes to America's sanctions, there is again that sense of dismay from the Biden administration. It was a sense of dismay last night that the sanctions were watered down. We are going to hear from the U.S. president in about 2 hours. The sense of dismay was because the United States didn't come out and call Russia's actions last night as a full-on invasion. That tone changed this morning when a U.S. official went and said an invasion is an invasion. And then the U.S. president at the last minute this morning decided to address the nation, because I think his administration realized that it has to come out and say that it has a set of sanctions that it wants to impose against Russia. We'll have to again see what those sanctions are, and whether or not, again, it'll deter Vladimir Putin if he does plan on making further incursions into Ukraine, if it'll deter him or not. But I think one of the problems right now is that the Biden administration had made so many threats of these quote-unquote hard-hitting sanctions that to not adhere to the red lines that it created would ultimately put it in a position of weakness. And I think that's where the concern is here in the United States, that at what point are you going to, impose those hard-hitting sanctions that you've been talking about. It's not just Vladimir Putin that's looking how this administration is going to deal with that, what this speech is going to be about at 2 p.m. But definitely China is going to be looking at it. North Korea is going to be looking at it. Iran is about to make a deal possibly with the United States regarding its nuclear program. They're going to be looking at it. It's going to have a geopolitical implication all over the world. So it's very important how this administration plays its cards right now.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.